Picture this. A Chinese immigrant gets rejected for a US visa 8 times, builds a boring video app that everyone ignores. Then, COVID hits, and bam! Overnight, he becomes richer than Elon Musk was in 2019. We're talking about a man who went from 0 to $35 billion in 365 days, while the rest of the world was stuck at home in pajamas. His company became more valuable than Disney, Coca-Cola, and Netflix combined. But here's the kicker. He never intended for regular people to use his product. This is the absolutely insane story of how Eric Yuan accidentally built a $165 billion empire by creating the most boring app on the planet. Eric Yuan was once rejected by the US government 8 times for a visa. Today, he's worth more than the GDP of most countries. His company went from handling 10 million daily users to 300 million overnight. But here's the twist. Zoom wasn't even supposed to be a consumer product. So how did a Chinese immigrant with a boring business tool accidentally create the most essential app of the 21st century? The answer will shock you. Our story begins in 1997 with a young Chinese engineer named Eric Yuan, working at a video conferencing company called WebEx. Every day, Yuan would watch customers struggle with glitchy, expensive software that barely worked. He had a vision. What if video calling could be as simple as making a phone call? But WebEx wasn't interested in his radical ideas. So in 2011, at age 41, Yuan did something crazy. He quit his comfortable executive job and convinced 40 of his best engineers to follow him into the unknown. They were going to build the video conferencing platform that should have existed all along. The early days were brutal. Yuan's team worked 16-hour days in a cramped office, burning through their savings while tech giants like Skype and Google dominated the market. Investors called their idea boring and unnecessary. After all, who needed another video calling app? While competitors focused on features, Yuan obsessed over one thing: making video calls that actually worked. He personally tested every single build, often staying up until 3 a.m., finding bugs that would ruin user experience. His team thought he was crazy, spending months perfecting details that seemed insignificant. But Yuan understood something his competitors didn't. He knew that technology only succeeds when it disappears, when it becomes so seamless that users forget they're even using it. So while Skype required downloads and Google Hangouts demanded accounts, Zoom worked instantly with just a link. By 2019, Zoom had grown steadily to 10 million daily users. They were profitable, stable, and completely under the radar. Eric Yuan had built exactly what he wanted: a boring, reliable business tool that just worked. But nobody could have predicted what happened next. March 2020 changed everything. A virus nobody had heard of began spreading across the globe, and suddenly the entire world was forced indoors. Offices closed, schools shut down, and families were separated by lockdowns. Overnight, humanity needed to figure out how to work, learn, and connect from home. The problem was massive. Billions of people suddenly needed reliable video calling, and existing platforms weren't ready. Skype crashed under the load. Google Meet struggled with capacity. Microsoft Teams froze constantly. But there was one platform that kept working perfectly: the boring business app that nobody had paid attention to. What happened next was unprecedented in tech history. Zoom's daily users exploded from 10 million to 200 million in just 30 days. That's like going from the population of Michigan to 2/3 of the entire United States. But here's where it gets crazy. Yuan had designed it for business meetings with 5 to 10 people, not for grandmother's birthday parties with 50 family members. The platform was about to face the ultimate stress test. Yuan made a decision that would define his legacy. Instead of trying to monetize the crisis, he made Zoom free for everyone. While his competitors scrambled to handle the load, Yuan's team worked around the clock to keep the servers running. The numbers were staggering. In April 2020 alone, people spent 3.2 billion minutes on Zoom calls. That's equivalent to over 6,000 years of conversation in a single month. Wedding receptions moved to Zoom. College graduations happened on Zoom. Even therapy sessions and religious services found their home on this platform. But explosive growth brought explosive problems. Zoom bombing became a household term as uninvited guests crashed private meetings. Privacy concerns emerged as users realized their calls might not be as secure as they thought. Suddenly, Yuan's boring business app was front-page news for all the wrong reasons. The media attacks were relentless. Competitors spread fear about security vulnerabilities. Government officials questioned Zoom's Chinese connections. In just weeks, Yuan went from unknown entrepreneur to one of the most scrutinized CEOs in America. This is where most companies would have crumbled. But Yuan did something remarkable. He took full responsibility and fixed everything. He hired top security experts, implemented end-to-end encryption, and personally addressed every concern in transparent blog posts. October 19, 2020. This is the date that changed everything for Eric Yuan. Zoom's stock price hit $588 per share, giving the company a market valuation of over $165 billion, more than IBM, Intel, and Adobe combined. But here's the most insane part. Yuan owned 22% of the company. Overnight, this humble engineer, who had been rejected for a US visa 8 times, was now worth over $35 billion. In less than 12 months, he had become one of the richest people on Earth. The transformation was complete. A boring business app had accidentally become the backbone of human communication during the most isolating period in modern history. Zoom wasn't just a product anymore. It was a lifeline. Zoom fatigue entered the dictionary. "You're on mute" became the most said phrase of 2020. Children who had never heard of video calling before were suddenly teaching their grandparents how to join virtual family dinners. Zoom had achieved something that trillion-dollar companies like Facebook and Google had tried for years to accomplish. It had fundamentally changed how humans communicate, and it happened completely by accident. The success triggered a massive shift in how we think about work, education, and social interaction. Companies realized they didn't need expensive offices. Students discovered they could learn from anywhere. Families separated by oceans could share meals together. But Yuan's success also created a new category of competitor. Microsoft invested billions into Teams. Google revamped Meet. Facebook launched Rooms. Every tech giant suddenly wanted a piece of the video calling revolution that Yuan had accidentally started. Today, even as the world has reopened, Zoom remains essential. The platform that nobody wanted before 2020 now processes over 3.3 trillion meeting minutes annually. That's more than all phone calls made in human history before 1980. Eric Yuan proved that in technology, timing isn't everything. Preparation, meeting opportunity is. He spent 9 years building a boring, reliable product that nobody appreciated until everyone desperately needed it. The immigrant, who was rejected 8 times for a visa, had created something more valuable than most countries' entire economies. But perhaps more importantly, he had connected humanity during its most isolated moment. Zoom's story teaches us that the most successful products aren't always the flashiest or most innovative. Sometimes, they're just the ones that work exactly when the world needs them most. Yuan didn't set out to revolutionize human communication. He just wanted to build video calls that didn't suck. And in doing so, he accidentally built a $100 billion empire. If Eric Yuan's incredible journey from 8 visa rejections to a $35 billion fortune blew your mind, smash that like button and subscribe for more insane business stories like this.